So Apple's brand new 15-inch MacBook Air is finally here, and I'm honestly super curious to see if I can fit it into my everyday workflow. Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Nenad, and this is the base version of the M2 MacBook Air. Now let's check out what we've got going on in here. Alright, so in the box, there's of course the MacBook Air. You also get some paperwork and a couple stickers, a really nice braided USB-C to MagSafe charging cable, and then there's also your power brick. Now I chose to go with the 70-watt fast charger, but you get to choose between this one or a smaller 35-watt dual USB-C power adapter. So this 15-inch has the exact same design as the 13-inch, and it kind of takes on that MacBook Pro look with these really nice rounded out edges. Now of course, there's the signature Apple logo on top here, but there's no etched in branding on the bottom like there is on the Pro. You've also got 4 rubber legs down here just to give you some extra grip, and that's basically it. But it feels really premium, just like every other Apple product, and this silver color looks absolutely amazing. Not to mention, it comes in 3 more colors, which are Midnight, Starlight, and Space Gray. And just to quickly compare the two side by side, here's the silver MacBook Air sitting right next to my Space Gray MacBook Pro. Now obviously the big selling point of Air laptops is just how light and portable they are, and it's no different with this 15-inch. It honestly feels like I can take this thing anywhere, and somehow it feels easier to carry around than my 14-inch Pro. I also had a 16-inch MacBook a little while ago, and it was super big and clunky, and it was just really awkward using it anywhere else other than at my desk. But this screen is just about an inch smaller, and the footprint of this thing really feels way easier to bring around with me. It only weighs 3.3 pounds, and it's 115 millimeters thick, which are both less than my 14-inch. And it's just one of those things you really gotta see in person to really appreciate how awesome this thing is. So if portability is a big must for you and you definitely still want something with a bigger display, then you really got to check this one out. Of course, most of you want this laptop because of its screen size, but what's the quality like? So this is a 15.3-inch LED backlit display, which is actually a display technology that Apple's been using for a while now. It's a 2880 by 1864 resolution at 224 pixels per inch. There's a 60 Hz refresh rate and up to 500 nits brightness. And like all other MacBooks, there's a 1080p webcam right in this little notch here. But I have to say, this bigger display looks really great, and it gets plenty bright, so I haven't had any issues with that. The text on here is nice and sharp, the colors look vibrant, and there's even support for Apple's True Tone. Now side by side with my 14-inch Pro, I gotta admit that you don't get the same sharpness on the 15-inch, and this is only a 60 Hz display, so you can notice some differences when you're scrolling around. But if you don't need the absolute best display, this LED panel in here is already gonna be so good for you, and honestly, you probably wouldn't even be able to notice all these little differences. Now this is the entry-level model that runs for $1299, and for this price tag, I've been really impressed with its performance so far. There's an 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 8GB of memory, and a 256GB internal SSD. So these specs will probably be more than enough performance for most of you, especially if you're not doing any super intensive tasks. But if you want to future-proof this thing and just get a bit more performance out of it, then I highly recommend jumping up to the 16GB model. So now you're looking more at a price of $1499, and I think that extra performance you're gonna get is totally worth the extra $200. But if you're just looking for a daily browser and you spend most of your time on regular everyday tasks like emailing and browsing around, 8GB should be totally fine for that. So around the keyboard, I'm really used to seeing the tiny speaker holes on the side here like on my MacBook Pro, but on this 15-inch, it's just a completely solid aluminum piece. And I'll do a speaker comparison in just a second, since that's one of the big differences between the 13-inch and this 15-inch. I love the awesome typing experience you get with Apple keyboards, and it's no different typing on this one. It's actually the same size keyboard you get on the smaller 13-inch, but they did make the glass trackpad a bit bigger on here, which is a nice extra touch. So there's 2 Thunderbolt ports and MagSafe charging on this left side, and there's just a 3.5mm headphone jack on the other side. You can probably get away with just 2 Thunderbolt ports, but keep in mind if you plan on plugging into an external monitor or maybe another accessory like an external drive, that's already going to take up all your ports. It's just one of those things. If you want this really thin and light form factor, then the I/O is something you're going to have to sacrifice on. But for most of you that don't need all that extra connectivity, this is honestly going to be just fine for you. So I've been putting this 15-inch Air to the test over the last few days, and I even edited this whole video on here just to see how it holds up. Now I shoot all my footage in 4K, and the M2 chip in here had absolutely no issues keeping up in Premiere Pro, and I was doing this all in full quality. quality. But everything runs really smooth on this timeline. I can scrub through footage with no problems, and I try to max out its performance by adding a bunch of 4K layers onto this timeline, and I was able to get up to 6 before I noticed it slowing down a bit. Now, if you're editing really large 8K files, or you just have an intense editing workflow, then you probably already know that you're gonna need something much more powerful than this base model. But if you're just getting started in creative work, or you treat it more as a hobby, then you can definitely get away with just 8 GB of RAM. But if I had to pick between upgrading the RAM or upgrading the internal storage, I personally think you get way more benefits from upgrading the RAM. And the reason I say this is because there's no way to go back and add more RAM into here, but you can always get an external SSD like the Samsung T7 Shield if you need more storage. You're also going to future-proof your laptop, and it'll be able to handle more intensive applications later down the road. But let me know down in the comments what you think. Is it more worth it to upgrade your RAM, or should you get more internal storage? Now, you're also going to get up to 18 hours of battery life, so you'll easily get through the whole day doing some light computer work. But just to put it to the test and see how long it would actually last me, I ended up editing this whole video on just a single charge, which I haven't been able to do on my 14-inch Pro. Another difference between the 15-inch and the 13-inch is there's now 6 speakers in here with support for spatial audio. So here's a little sample of what they sound like. So the question really comes down to, should you buy the 15-inch MacBook Air? Well, if you want a laptop that's really portable, something that's going to be more than powerful enough for your daily needs, and you really want that bigger display, then definitely go for it. It's just the perfect everyday laptop, and it's going to handle most things you throw at it. But if you're planning on speccing this thing out because you know your workflow requires more power, and you see the price creeping up into that $2,000 range, then I'd really look at the 14-inch M2 Pro instead. So if you absolutely know you're not that pro type of user, and you don't need all that extra performance, then the base version of this 15-inch is honestly going to be totally fine for you. Now, you can probably find a Windows laptop that has a better display or more performance, but if you're already tied into that Apple ecosystem, you get all the extra features like iMessage, FaceTime, and a bunch of other Apple benefits. And not to mention, the build quality on all Mac laptops is just on a completely different level. Out of all the laptops I've had over the years, I've never had a single issue with them, and that's a big reason why these are totally worth it. And that's pretty much it. So I made sure to put a link in the description so you can check out all the details for yourself. And if you got this far in the video, let me know in the comments if you think this 15-inch is a better option over the 13-inch. As always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.